Hi, everyone. My name is Chica Barbosa, a guest curator in this edition of the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival, bringing a program of short films by Latin American artists with the theme Realities and Dreamscapes, Unconventional Narratives of the Latin American Experience. And I'm excited to have here with me today 3 filmmakers part of the program, and I'll give an introduction to each one of them. We have Kim Torres, director of Atrapaluz, a Costa Rican screenwriter and director born in 1993. Her short film, Nightlight, premiered in the official short film selection of the 75 Cannes Film Festival, becoming the first Costa Rican film to compete for the Palme d'Or. Her short film, Suncatcher, had its premiere in an international competition at the Locarno Film Festival, Mar del Plata, MoMA's New Directors New Films at Lincoln Center, among many others. She has also worked as a screenwriter for Netflix series in Latin America and Spain, as well as fiction and hybrid feature films. She is currently in pre-production of her feature film, If We Don't Burn, How Do We Light Up the Night? We also have here Francisco Borrajo, director of Playa. He studied a degree in Cinema and Television Centro from 2009 to 2013, and graduated directing a minute film called Fin, and editing the short film La Libertad de Hugo, which was selected at the Morelia International Film Festival, Mar del Plata Film Festival, Berlinale, Havana Film Festival, among many others. In 2020, he worked on the editing of the feature film Monstruo by Jose Pablo Escamilla, which premiered at the Locarno International Film Festival and was a winner of a honorable mention, Premio Mezcal, from Guadalajara Film Festival. He also won a Biznaga de Plata for Best Ibero-American Film at the Malaga Film Festival. And currently, he continues working on the editing and post-production of projects inside and outside his production company, Colectivo Colmena, in Mexico City. And we have also here Ju Almeida, director of Eo Negra, Black Woman. She unfortunately was not available to be here today, but we have Rayanne, who's representing her, and she's the producer and distributor, and she's also a curator. Nevertheless, I will give Ju's bio just so we have her present in a way. So Ju Almeida was born in the Brazilian state of Bahia, and today she works between São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. Since 2010, she merges life and art, expressing herself through cinema and photographing a poetic, experimental, and documentary way, exploring her way of looking into the world and everything that makes it up. She has a BA in cinema from Universidade Federal da Bahia, and has since specialized in cinematography. As a director, Ju Almeida directed and wrote the short films I, a Black Woman, Iru Nori, Náufraga, Elia de Lésbica, and Axé Irmãos. Represented by Prodigal Films, she directs commercials, and more recently, she took over the role of a soap opera director at Rede Globo, Brazil's biggest media conglomerate. Ju believes in building new imaginaries as a revolutionary tool for social change. So welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to have you here. This is a very special program in the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. It's the intention is to showcase different portraits of the Latin American experience. As we usually know, we see a very conventional storytelling sometimes that I feel like it's interesting to show an audience of people who are breaking, the boundaries and proposing something new, challenging the viewer and understanding that sometimes we underestimate their subjectivity and sensitivity. So very excited to start this conversation with you all. And I wanted to kick off with a general question, which is, I noticed that these 3 short films, and that's the reason that I wanted to join you in a conversation, is that I noticed there's a similarity in the portrait of young character or characters and a conflict of the present. Whether it's a relationship that changed, the disconnection with the world around you, or the complexity of understanding your own identity. So I wanted to ask if you can share about how you came to these characters, how you created these characters, and how you came with the actors that represented them. And Rayanne, I'm gonna just translate to you this very quickly. Rayanne, fiz uma introdução de todo mundo e, enfim, queria falar que é um prazer estar os 3 juntos nesse programa, porque são 3 curtas que eu acho que dialogam muito entre si. E queria começar muito com uma pergunta em geral, que é uma coisa que eu percebi desses 3 filmes, é que eles têm um interesse em retratar um personagem jovem, ou personagens, e um conflito do presente, seja uma relação que mudou, seja uma desconexão que acontece com o mundo ao redor, ou a complexidade de entender sua própria identidade, né? Como é o caso de Eu Negra. Então, a pergunta é como que chegou nesses personagens, como que chegou nessa criação de personagens e como que chegou nos atores que representam esses personagens. So I'll start with Pancho, and then Pancho, you can choose who's cooking out afterwards.
Yeah, well, Playa was like created from notebook scraps and conversations with me and an ex-girlfriend I had. So I created from my own feeling, from my own feelings, from my own remembering, and so what I like, the common word I keep coming back to my mind when I saw my work alongside the others is like the feeling of belonging. So I felt a lot like in Playa, for example, it was like belonging to the youth and to love and what is love at a certain age and what happens when that love needs to get teared apart because of growing. And that's, I think, how I come up with Playa. It's myself, so the character, it's myself and my ex-girlfriend. So it was a lot of when I was writing it and when I was taking all these notes, a lot of what I had to take out sometimes and sometimes it's stick is this feeling of of young love, of new experiences, and how like you process the new experiences of love through time. And when you look back in time, and what and what remembering makes you feel. That's what I wanted to talk in Playa. And I also wanted to talk about a lot of this feeling of getting to be an adult, you know, and how and how you need sometimes to take apart some of these passions and young feelings to become this adult, you know. And so then I come back to the belonging, you know, like Playa was it's about someone that wants to keep belonging to a relationship, to some love, and then love needs to fade away because you grow up. So that's more what what I had in mind when I was writing and choosing what text to use in the short film. I don't know. I think that's all.
Nice. Yeah, I was wondering if like was that a personal experience or no? Like you keep wondering, where did I come from? And one of the reasons that I ask about the actors is because at a moment I kind of like almost believe that these two are a couple and it's really them sharing. So I wanted just to know how you came with this process with them, did you give them a special tool for that, or there's emotional connection between both of them?
No, it's created. All the images were made when I was in this relationship, and most of the text is taken from personal notes, conversations I had with my ex-girlfriend. And then what I did when I bring out actors to read what I made, it's the first time I made it 3 times. All the text I made them read by actors. The first time I took two of really close friends that were just like started to being a couple, so love was fresh, you know. And I made them read all Playa script, and taped it. So I started editing with their voices, and I used a lot of their improvisations, and I wanted to use these little details in communication when you're just about knowing and starting a new relationship, and that helped me a lot. But they were not really trained actors, so I started editing with their voices, and then I bring out another couple of real actors that were just coming back from a big film. They were filming together like for 6 or 7 months, and they were really, really, really close, because on that film they were a couple, and like they were really, really close friends in that time. And that helped me a lot too, because they were not in love or in a relationship, but they had like some kind of new discovering themselves, and I also use that a lot. So I put them to read my script again, and I took out also a lot of stuff from them, from what they were talking about. Like I was taping in secret when they were only chatting, and I used some of that too. Um, and yeah, I think that was the process. Like it was first my conversations, my notes, and then I give them to newly lovers, and that helped a lot. And then I give them to these like professional actors that were also having like in that time like a close relationship. And I don't know, it's like I fed the script with little details of love, of communication. Like I was really open to this. I don't know, like I was like more in look for little details in their conversations, little things you want to share with someone you love. I don't know, like that was the what was in my mind in those
Oh,
times.
incredible. Great to know. Kim, you wanna come next?
Yes, well, thank you for having me, and with these shorts, I really love them too. I saw them, and something that I felt also that they had in common was like this idea of like an inner landscape of the characters, because like we see them, but what we're seeing is like what's inside of them in a certain way. It's like a very intimate stories, all of them. And I think that has to do a lot with like what is behind the short for me, because when I did this short, I was like in a very weird period of my life that I felt that it's very dramatic, but I felt that I had like nothing to say to the world, and like nobody would like like why would anybody want to see something that is inside of me, and like like something like this, like very weird. But I think that is something that happens to a lot of us too. We like these types of insecurities, and like lack of appreciation of like what's inside of you. And it was a very beautiful process to make it, because it was like the process of like taking what's inside of you and manifesting it like in a physical and like in a physical way, and like connecting with people, with the actress too that I had met when she was 15 years old. In the short, she's 17. And after the short, she also started like a process of like identity. I mean, not because of the short, it was like her own process of like finding her identity and like becoming a non-binary person. And I think it was very beautiful, because in a certain way, um, we were like in the same search, like both of us, like me and the actress, of like finding like our own voice, of like finding like embracing like who we are, and like it doesn't matter what that is. Like it can be anything. Like you don't really have to be so sure what it is, but you can explore it, and it's like a game, and it's like like a exploration of like who you are and what you want to like radiate. And yeah, I think it was like a process of discovery too, and of like I had a script, and the script was like very clear in a certain way. Like there's a lot of things of the script that are like very the same in the short, but also it was interesting for me to keep like discovering what the short was about, because I think that it's like a very simple story. It's like just like a girl like is trying to like connect with who she is. Like she feels uncomfortable in this world. She tries to connect with who she is, and she finds a way to do it. Like, and I don't know, I even though like I had already thought about it so much, writing the script and shooting and everything, when I was editing, I was still like discovering things like, oh, maybe this is this, like maybe the cyborg is like her alter ego, or maybe it's like a past life, or maybe it's like just like her imagination, you know, like it was like so many questions that I still don't have the answers, and I felt comfortable with that. Because also it was like an exercise for me. I had worked a lot like in screenwriting in very like traditional environments, and it was like a very liberating experience to be able to do something that felt very like personal and playful. And I remember with the DP that is like a very, very close friend, I remember I would tell her that for me, like cinema is so complicated to know like what makes something, what makes you feel something, like what is that? It's very abstract. It can be anything. It can be very different things. But I remember I told her that like I don't care if people don't understand the story, or if it's not like the best acting or the best whatever, but I just want people to feel something. And we got like very like connected to that idea, and I think that's what we try to do with the shirts. And
Was this element of the light, was that already in the script?
yes, it was funny because I had written this light. It was like a character. It's like, and the light comes in, and the light goes, and the light says, and the light does. And we were like, how are we gonna do this? So like we did so many tests, and at the end, this light, we did it like with a PVC tube with water and like crystals and a projector light through it. And it was like, because we didn't want to do it like in VFX because we didn't have the budget to do it. So I don't know, it was very funny. We were at some point, the light talked, and it was like, but how does the light talk? And I had talked like in another language, but now it's like more sound design. But yeah, it was like a sort of like a calling, that like this sci-fi experience, that there's like this calling for the girl in the shirt, and it's a sort of like a guiding light. And also like it's very cheesy, but for me it's like a shirt about like inner light. You know, like what's inside of people, like that untangible thing. And for me it was like something that this character like in some way had to like follow this light to find like her own light.
That's not cheesy. That, you know, but what I think is very interesting is seeing that how something that you have implemented in a script, it becomes live. You know, it brings life once you're there, right? Like you had this idea of the life, but you didn't know what this life was gonna be like, and then suddenly, you know, cinema kind of like builds itself outside of the page. And that's really amazing, because I loved how that light was represented. You know, it's the sound also that you bring life to this light. And so I was very curious to know about that. But yeah, not cheesy at all, Kim. I loved listening. Rayanne, tua vez, só relembrando a pergunta, se, enfim, você pode, né, compartilhar do processo que você compartilhou com a Ju, como que ela veio com esse personagem, né, e essa atriz que imagino que vocês, eu sei que tem uma relação ali, né, então adoraria ouvir.
Sim, eu acho que o Eu Negra fala muito de juventude, porque também ele passa por um processo da própria Juliana, né? Assim, desse lugar de descobrir sua identidade, de compreender quem ela é tanto racialmente no mundo quanto como indivíduo. Eu acho que isso aconteceu ali naquele processo em que você vai amadurecendo, vai se tornando adulto, né? É, e eu acho que esse é um processo que não é apenas dela, mas é um processo de muitas pessoas no Brasil, assim. No Brasil, existe uma certa ambiguidade, uma certa confusão quando se fala em racialidade, né? Principalmente das identidades negras, de se perceber negra, estando num lugar onde houve uma espécie de apagamento, né? Então eu acho que esse filme ele vai falar da juventude porque é justamente nesse momento que a gente começa a se questionar, né? Começa a tentar entender quem a gente nesse processo todo, né? Nesse processo de embranquecimento que a gente passa a vida inteira, nesse processo do que a gente é e do que a gente não é. Então, eu acho que passa muito nesse lugar que é pessoal da Ju, mas que ao mesmo tempo percorre várias outras mulheres no Brasil, várias outras pessoas negras e pardas dentro do Brasil, né? E Jamile é uma grande amiga, assim. Acho que Ju é uma pessoa muito sortuda, assim, em ter amizades muito talentosas. E eu acho que ela tem um olhar muito sensível para perceber o talento que essas amigas têm, né? Então, eu acho que a escolha de Jamile, ela não é à toa, já que a personagem, de alguma maneira, vem de um processo muito pessoal. Acho que nada melhor do que alguém que a conheça tão bem, né? Assim, que alguém que possa realmente passar esse sentimento e essas questões que a Ju tenta transmitir. Então, eu acho que a escolha de Jamília ali está num lugar de intimidade, tanto com a personagem, quanto com ela mesma, entre, sabe, diretor e atriz. E aí eu acho que não é uma escolha aleatória mesmo, assim. Eu acho que a partir dessa ideia de um filme intimista, ter alguém ali tão próximo para fazer esse trabalho facilita muito.
Uhum. Ok, vou tentar traduzir aqui tudo que essa coisa maravilhosa você falou. So just sharing what Rayanne, spoke about this process of Juliana is that it is curious how it also represents this young character because it comes from Juliana's own process and own life experience of understanding her Blackness, her identity, not only from it's a personal starting point, but it's something that really speaks through a whole nation in Brazil because there's something about Brazil's identity with the Black population that goes through an it's something actually very ambiguity of what it is to be Black, because you have different types of experience, right, of being Black in Brazil. And it comes from from a process of erasing history of this identity, erasing history of this population, so and going through this whiteness, right? Like in Brazil, it's very common that you go through a process of almost rejecting your own identity because you need to accouplate to this identity that is well accepted in this country. And so it really comes from that inner process of Juliana's, of understanding that and making that understanding as a transformation. And the idea of having this as a someone young or someone that comes from the youth, it's something that needs to be reconstructed. So that's why she wanted to represent this in this character. And how to transform oneself, it has to begin from an initial idea. So the reason to also choose this character and this actress was because Juliana and Jamil, which is the actress, have a very strong connection, and they shared very much about experiences and all of that. But Jamil, being a very close friend to Juliana, she knew how to interpret that, from Juliana's experience. And so it was a very collective work between the two of them. And I think she was only able to translate that emotion and personality because she was so close from Juliana and from that experience also, from that, of being a Black woman in Brazil. So it's very a portrait of understanding that and trying to eradicate something that's very rooted, you know, in your own identity since you are born in this country. Acho que falei mais ou menos, Rayanne, tudo que você falou aí, mas acho que tá valendo. And so I wanted to also ask something specific about, you know, the films. There's something, you know, Kim, from your film that I thought it was very fascinating. And then listening to you talking about, you know, choosing these characters, and you're doing your new feature film with a lot of young people, you know, like there's something that you're very capable of translating emotions from this young generation, that it's so complex as today, right? I feel like it's very different from my own generation, you know, from my youth, for example. So to be able to really translate those emotions in images, it's very powerful. And so I wanted you to tell us more about that decision, you know, of this youth, this generation, and the elements that you use, right? Because I feel like we see the chat box, the communication, you know, the way that they speak, the way that they dance. So all these elements, you know, dancing routines, like how are these, you know, part of your body of work?
Well, that's interesting because I have realized that like after this short, the song catcher, I did another one with like also young characters, like my two young cousins and another girl. And then I'm finishing one right now that is like completely teenagers, like 20 teenagers, you know. It's like I think that all of them like reflect this youth in different ways because they're like from different contexts. Like for example, this most recent one that I'm still finishing is in the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica, and it's a very small town. It's more about like, I don't know, like how kids own the town, how they can like just walk on the streets and have like their own life without any like supervision because it's like a very safe space. But I think that every day, like I'm more curious about understanding children because before, or children or youths, because before a while ago, I felt very disconnected to youths because I didn't know how to communicate very well. Like I had a small sister and she's 13 now. So she's been growing with me in this process. And it's been really nice to be like next to her to try to understand like this inner world of like girlhood again, like reinterpreted after I had already lived it, you know, because it's also it's curious because I think that, I mean, a lot of people maybe from my age, I am 30 years old. And it's interesting because like the only moment in life that I can look back with a certain perspective is my childhood and my adolescence, you know. And that doesn't mean that I cannot tell a story of someone that is older than me, but if there's something about it that is like talking about what you know. And like at this point of my life, that is what I can see with a certain distance and like and a reflection and like know newer generations like my sister or Simone, the actress from the short. And they are people from whom I learn a lot and who I admire a lot. Simone, for example, is like a very creative person. Like she tattoos, she makes clothing. Like part of the wardrobe of the shirt was made by her. She cuts hair. She does everything. She's just like very amazing, and I really love like talking to her because I feel that there's so much to learn from the youth. And right now, like I'm in a period that I'm very interested also in taking it to like another level, not only like portraying youth, but also like working more alongside of youth, like through workshops and like more like giving the tools to the kids and the teenagers to like tell their own stories. I find that would be also like for me like the next step of like exploring this like inner world of the youth.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fascinating. And Pancho, well, I mean, it's interesting when you said that it comes from a very personal experience, your film. And that thing that you said about belonging and longing, and I'm curious to hear about your this immigrant experience, right? Because it feels like that was also part of your experience, and I feel like that feeling of longing also comes from a feeling of displacement, right? And perhaps not only as in a territory speaking, but like in personal relationships. So I think like one true love becomes something else when you're experiencing at the same time an immigrant reality. So I wanted to know more about that, how this with your immigrant experience is related. And also wanted to hear a little bit more about the relation with the editing process, because I know that's something very intrinsic of your work. So if this was something that I was only found throughout the editing, which I think it's something that it's very common from your body of work too.
Yes, like when you were talking, I was rethinking on a lot of stuff, but like this short film was made when I was like traveling a lot with my ex-girlfriend, and I was still on film school, so I was very inspired by Jonas Mekas and Chris Marker. So I was like filming my life, and I had this idea that this would sometime become a short film or something. But when I was filming it, I really was just enjoying the joy of using a Super 8mm camera and using my this Lomokino camera. That's the other camera used for the short film. And then this relationship ended, and this filming was this memory. So it was some kind of a natural process of recreating my relationship with the scraps of memories I have. And also I wanted to, it was important for me at the time, the feeling of separation, because and the separation, the real thing is that this ex-girlfriend went to Spain to study, and I stayed here because I was in my last year of film school, so I couldn't get out. So so I used like geography in two ways. Like it was in some times of the film, geography and the thing of playa, beach, is this place where we were together, where we were spending time together, learning together, living new experiences together. And then I had to make this kind of like separation, and then I wanted to. I don't know if I made it into the short film, but I wanted to show like that the separation in geographically also, and with some sounds. I use a lot of sounds also to show up the difference of Spain and Mexico. Kind of. I was thinking more of first world and third world in some kind of way. So yeah, in the process, it was important to me to show that I stayed and she went to this first world, and I had to stay where I was. And yeah, that was like important to me to show it in the short film. But more in and also it was important to me to show how separate people can still continue, more like the difficulties of continuing a relationship in a separate state, like the difficulties of what conversation becomes when it only goes through a screen, like right now. What the difference between how a conversation changes and a relationship changes through a screen than through real time experiencing, you know, that was also really important for me. And that's like kind of, and I think I did that by creating this geographically separation by images and just sounds, you know. I don't know if I answered the question or I just
Yeah, I think it was like having that understanding of these two places and how to, you know, have a relation between image and sound, that you can understand the difference, you know, of this of and almost like understanding the emotional, you know, relationship within each image, you know, of the outside and the inside, the far away, the close. So I think you managed to to connect to that. And Rayanne, in your case, in the film of Jules, of course, there's this incredible homage to Zózimo Bubu, Alma no Olho, Spirit in the Eye film, which is a very like historic mark in Brazilian cinema. And I wonder if you're able to share, you know, this creative process of Juliana's making this connection between those images and having Jamil recreating this powerful representation of Spirit in the Eye, and this finding this connection between those images and characters. Rayanne, falando em português agora, queria saber de você, enfim, o que você puder compartilhar do processo da Ju, né? É que, claro, uma coisa que eu acho incrível nesse filme é essa homenagem ao Zózimo Bubu com o filme Alma no Olho, né? Essas cenas, enfim, que representam muito esse personagem negro, né? Dentro do cinema brasileiro, acho que é um marco mesmo de imagem dialética, né? Basicamente. E aí eu queria saber, assim, como é que foi, se você puder compartilhar como foi esse processo criativo e como que a Ju conseguiu encontrar essa conexão entre essas imagens e personagens.
Enfim, a partir do que eu posso falar, né, também.
Claro.
Ju começou esse filme, produzir ele em 2017, né? Ele veio ficar pronto, se não me engano, em 2022. Então, aí a gente tem um período longo de um processo com o filme, né? Que eu acho que parte daquilo que eu estava falando, que é um processo muito particular, muito pessoal. Então, eu acho que era um filme que não tinha pressa. E eu acho isso muito incrível, assim, um filme que não tem pressa, porque ele parte desse lugar de autoconhecimento também. E eu acho que as imagens do Zózimo, eu acho que elas vão chegando já nesse processo de amadurecimento do próprio filme e também da Juliana, né? Eu acho de se encontrar, que eu acho que aí o processo ele se transforma não só em se encontrar como uma mulher negra, mas se encontrar com esse cinema negro produzido no Brasil e apagado. Então eu acho que os filmes, tanto o Alma no Olho e o Eu Negra, eles vão se conectar ali, se juntar nesse processo e nessa caminhada de Ju que agora se torna dupla, né? Tipo, acho que ela passa da fase daquilo que a gente estava falando da juventude, né? E dessa busca por si, mas por essa outra busca intelectual também, né? Tipo, esse outro conhecimento. Porque se o apagamento do povo preto, se a gente vive essa falsa democracia racial, né? Que nos apagou, ela faz a gente se questionar, faz a gente se questionar a nossa racialidade, então ela faz a gente questionar outras coisas também, né? O que esse apagamento também atravessou. E eu acho que aí Ju encontra essa resposta no Alma no Olho, né? Ele atravessa a arte também. Ele atravessa a arte e a política no Brasil, né? E eu acho que o Encontro com Alma no Olho, acho que são dois filmes, acho que de alguma maneira são parecidos no que eles vão fazer, né? Em anos diferentes. Eu acho que é esse encontro, tipo, de épocas tão diferentes e filmes que tocam assuntos tão pertinentes ainda, que faz o filme se encontrar, fazem os filmes, né? Se conectarem também. Então, eu acho que é isso. Eu acho que o filme ele acaba atravessando outras épocas e criando atravessamentos para além da questão pessoal, mas de uma questão política, né? De o que é que esse apagamento atravessa, né? o que ele também quer apagar, e quem são essas resistências, né? Porque a gente se descobre nossa própria negritude e também começa a descobrir o que essas outras pessoas estavam fazendo, né? Quem eram essas pessoas que estavam, né, ali dialogando e questionando essa história.
Uhum. Incrível. Rayane, muito obrigada. Eu vou agora traduzir para ficar registrado. So yeah, one of the reasons that I think actually it's an invite to everyone watching this is to watch this incredible film called Spirit in the Eye by Zosimo Bubo. It's one of these incredible figures in Brazilian cinema, and Juliana makes a reference to this film and this director creating similar images that that you understand has a relation to that author and film. And one thing that Rayanne was able to share is that this film actually started in 2017 and it only concluded in last year. That's when Julian actually shared with me. And it's interesting to see because it's a film that had no agenda, had no rush. It was really, and I think that's why it's related so much to Juliana's own process of creating this film that actually, communicated the process she was going through these years. And actually, when these scenes that make reference to Spirit in the Eye actually came last year only before finishing the film, because it came through this maturity of not only Juliana going through the process of understanding her identity and how that can be transformative for her, but also understanding herself as a Black filmmaker and what does it mean for her to be a Black woman in cinema in Brazil. And that's why she came, she reached out to this film and to this homage and reference, because it's different when you go through your process of understanding your own self and identity, but also understanding your thorough exploration, how that was very important to her, because it's something that goes through a process of erasing, that identity in Brazil, how hard it is to make cinema as a Black person, as a Black filmmaker. And curious enough, it's relating to this film, which also went through that process in history. Zosimo Bubo was someone who really challenged the status quo and really brought this identity of this Black film, Black cinema in Brazil. So different times, different films, different characters, different moments, but how they all really create a connection, no matter what period of time you're in, and how that's why it's so powerful, and her decision to bring this at this moment really translates, this decisive of her process. So it's something that relates to everyone going through the same, as identity, and also as being a creative and discussing cinema from this point of view, from this Black identity point of view. So thank you, Rayanne, for sharing that. That was very powerful and very interesting. And before closing up this amazing conversation, which I would love to keep going on, but I wanted to just leave with another question about these three stories, that kind of like really I find a very interesting connection, because they all come from this fictional plot, right, from a script, but it does not follow a conventional narrative of fiction short films. Although they all clearly have an arc, right? But I wanted to ask about this aesthetic decisions, of bringing elements, a different use of time and space that departs from, from a classical approach. Pancho, if you want to go first.
Okay. For me, it was an editing exploration of memory and how we construct memory. So for me, it was essential because of the material, how I filmed it and what I was talking about, to be this kind of fragmented time-space thing. So yeah, it was something I had in mind a lot, because it was going to be natural from the material that I filmed, that it was going to be fragmented. So I took that fragmentation of time as a tool to talk about memory and how we construct memory, and how memory shifts and changes reality also through time. Like the same picture won't make you feel the same 5 years ago than 10 years ago. And for me, that was important. Also, this short film has changed a lot what it makes me feel to me through time also, you know. So yeah, that and talking a little more about editing, and it was also a challenge I put to myself to use I used kind of like 90% of the material I had, so it was also a challenge I put to myself to create this film with everything I got. So that's that's it.
Gracias, Pancho.
No.
I think for me it was like like a process of approximating to like film, cinema, and like new interests of the moment that I wanted to just like to explore and to be like very intuitive in the way that time passed, in the way that the image tried to like reflect something or suggest something that wasn't necessarily like said very directly. And I don't know, I think it was just like what felt right for me, just to like try to explore something that I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not, but it was very fun to try it. And I think I have a lot of questions like about time too in like films, because I was interested with this film since it was just like one character, basically like the main character, and she's basically alone most of the time. So for me, it was important also to have like this feeling of time passing, like in a very first person type of sense, like a very real type of feeling of time. And yeah, I don't know. I think that also like it's interesting because I feel that everything has its own world. Like this short has a world, and then the other short has another world, and I think the movie that I want to make has like another beat and another rhythm and another way of shooting. And for me, it's been nice also to think that I want to keep exploring and thinking and just like not settle into one way of making things. But definitely I think like from this short what stays in me and I want to like keep having in all my things that I will do in my life, I think is always uh, like always questioning like what else, like what's more fun, like what it sounds crazy but it can actually be a good idea, you know, like little things that make the process more exciting for me, because I didn't like learn directing in a very formal way. Like I studied more communication and like screenwriting, and to be honest, like I don't have that much technical like school knowledge of directing, of like how to shoot certain things. But that has been for me interesting because since I don't know that completely, I mean, of course I know intuitively and I see movies so I understand things, but it's been also very liberating to just say like, how do I do it? Like nobody has told me how to do it, so I just start from like another starting point. And I think that for me, I appreciate it a lot. Now I'm more interested in studying film somewhere, I don't know, but it's been nice to also like try to find a way by watching movies and talking with friends and reading books and like finding like another way that resonates more with what I personally want to do instead of like what I learned or something like this. So I think it's like around there.
Yeah, and really like adapt, right? To adapt to one's own rhythm. That's very interesting also. Rayanne, uma pergunta para você, não sei se você vai conseguir compartilhar, mas eu comentei que essas três histórias, né, esses três curtas, eles partem de um roteiro ficcional, no sentido de parecer né, um arco, uma história de um personagem, mas queria saber sobre essas, enfim, que não vem de uma proximidade clássica, né? Não vem de um roteiro clássico e de um ritmo clássico, ele vem um pouco trazendo uma perspectiva diferente, uma abordagem diferente, trazendo elementos diferentes. Então, queria saber sobre essas decisões estéticas, assim, o diferente uso do tempo e do espaço, né? A Juliana, ela trouxe um filme, um retrato de personagem, depois ela implementa umas imagens, né, de fora, tal. Então, queria saber, assim, essas decisões. Eu sei que a Ju também não vem da escola de cinema, talvez falar um pouco sobre isso, assim, de, né, essas decisões estéticas dela.
Então, acho que eu vou falar bem novamente a partir das minhas
Aham.
perspectivas também, né? Mas Juliana, ela começa o trabalho principalmente a partir da fotografia, né? Então, assim, eu acho que quando ela vai fazer o Eu Negra, lá em 2017, ela já começa a beber bastante desse olhar da fotografia, né? Então, tipo, a gente tem imagens que a gente consegue observar que é um olhar, né? Um olhar de uma fotógrafa, né? Tipo, enquadramentos, iluminação, a gente tem um olhar estético que parte também a partir desse outro trabalho dela, né? Então, acho que isso acaba tirando um pouco, talvez, inclusive da obrigação que ela tenha, não sei se seria essa palavra, mas de construir uma narrativa tão comum, assim, né? Tão comum. O que se espera ali de né, de uma história. E aí eu acho que com o tempo também, como é isso, é um filme que demorou alguns anos, ela vai aprimorando esse olhar mesmo, né? Tipo, esse olhar que é muito voltado para a imagem em si, né? Para a construção da narrativa a partir dos planos, das imagens, da montagem da cena, né? No sentido da montagem de direção de fotografia ali, né? Então, acho que ela constrói uma poética a partir desse lugar da fotografia e do cinema, mas principalmente a partir desse lugar da pesquisa de imagem fixa, estática também, né? Da fotografia, no caso. E aí eu acho que é por isso que o filme acaba traçando rotas fora do comum, assim, né? Quase ali começa quase como um ensaio fotográfico e termina com a inserção de outras imagens, né, de alguma maneira, e aí eu acho que é por isso que ele chega nesse ponto entre a fotografia, a poesia e o vídeo, né?
Sim, obrigada. Tô fazendo anotações aqui. Thank you, Ryan. I was making notes so I don't forget all the things that you said. But yeah, speaking about you in this case, she also doesn't come from, an academic formation in cinema, just as Kim. But she started as a still photographer. So really her body of work started with photography, and maybe that's why she brings this different perspective of really starting with the image, starting first with the image and then creating dialogues through it. So I think in the case of this film, and that's why these years that took the process, she really started first as this perspective of the shot, of the look of the shot, the illumination, these more technical things. But throughout the maturity of the process, she really started to implement other elements that she could, make it aprimorate in that sense. But still continues in a very visual narrative, her construction. So it's a film that almost starts as a photographic essay, and then going through the poem, through the poetic approach, until something that she could create more as a narrative of this character. But I said, yeah. So yeah, that's basically it. Like it comes from this aesthetic decision of a very visual portrait, but it was interesting to see how she could implement other things, and that's why this decision of bringing these images as a homage to Spirit in the Eye came also from this very visual understanding of a film, and so that's really where her place as Julieta comes from as an artist, is really understanding how the image is constructed at first, but how it can also be deconstructed throughout a narrative once, you know, she builds it. But yeah, I think that really brings our time to the end. Very interesting to hear, you know, the process of these 3 films that I think dialogued a lot, you know, between the 3 of them. So I wanted to appreciate, you know, the time of Pancho, Kim, and Rayanne. It's unfortunate that Ju wasn't able to be here, but I wanted to thank you for participating and for bringing these beautiful films and, you know, having the chance to show them to a larger audience in Philadelphia. So thank you so much for your presence here today, for participating in the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. And we invite everyone to check out this, you know, the whole program, but especially this future program of Latin American artists who transcend boundaries and beckon us to immerse ourselves in the kaleidoscope of their diverse perspectives, territories, and experiences. Muchas gracias y hasta pronto.
Gracias.
Gracias.